The first light of dawn crept gently over the river delta, painting the sky in soft streaks of gold and pink. Mist floated lazily above the water, curling around the reeds and drifting over the mudflats like ghostly silk. The river itself lay calm, reflecting the awakening sky, its surface broken only by the quiet ripple of fish. As they slipped through the shallows or the sudden flash of a kingfisher diving with precision, a gentle breeze carried the scent of wet earth, of moss and reeds, and something sharper. A hint of the wild, the smell of life that thrived on both survival and chance. Somewhere in the tall grass along the bank, a lioness stirred, her ears twitching to the subtle sounds of the delta. She was a shadow among shadows. Golden fur blending with the morning light, her muscles taut yet relaxed. Her gaze fixed on the water and the small group of humans moving. Carefully along the edge at the front of the villagers walked a young woman, her bare feet sinking slightly into the damp mud. She paused to watch a pair of frogs leap across a floating lily pad, their tiny bodies creating concentric ripples on the river's mirrored surface. A soft smile flickered across her face. She reached down to touch the water, letting her fingers brush against its coolness. Around her, children murmured quietly, chanted by the delicate dance of dragonflies skimming the surface. By the way, the sunlight turned droplets of dew on the grass into tiny, glittering orbs. There was a deep stillness here, a sense that the world had paused to breathe. Yet beneath that calm, something pulsed in awareness that the delta was alive. And not all life here welcomed visitors. The lioness shifted in the grass, just enough for the sunlight to catch the curve of her powerful back. Her eyes, golden and reflective, followed the woman's every movement. She did not advance, nor did she retreat. She was neither threat nor friend yet, only alert, waiting, calculating. Her ears flicked at every splash, the gentle plop of a fish surfacing,
Ow.
The whisper of reeds swaying in the wind, the distant call of a hornbill. Each sound was a note in the morning symphony, but some notes carried tension. Farther downstream, the dark eyes of crocodiles appeared at the waterline, barely breaking the surface, watching the same humans the lioness watched. The delta was layered with life, predator and prey, hunter and watcher. Each aware of the other yet moving in a delicate balance, the young woman bent down to examine. Something glinting beneath the water. Perhaps it was a small shell, or a cluster of stones, or the delicate shimmer of a water insect skimming the surface. She crouched low, her hair falling over her shoulders, her breath slow and steady. In this small act, the delta seemed to hold its breath with her. A slight ripple ran across the water, barely enough to disturb the reflection of the sky, and yet it carried a warning. A few crocodiles, dark and almost invisible beneath the surface, had begun to circle, their eyes shining like hidden gems. The woman did not see them. The children giggled softly, thinking of nothing but the wonder of discovery, her small fingers pointing to every butterfly and shiny rock. The lioness's tail twitched once, twice, betraying the tension coiled beneath her calm exterior. She remained still, poised, silent guardian caught between instinct and observation. The river delta shimmered as the sun climbed higher, warming the reeds and sending spirals of mist into the air. Birds took flight in sudden bursts, their wings flashing white and brown against the water. Frogs leapt with renewed energy, and somewhere, the distant croak of a heron echoed across the flatlands. Everything moved with purpose, yet slowly, as if the world itself were savoring the quiet before it changed. Even the crocodiles, their eyes gleaming just above the surface, were deliberate in their movements, sliding through the water with patient patience, calculating, almost ceremonial in the way they navigated their domain. The tension was invisible, but present, a thread connecting all the life in the delta, the humans, the lioness, the birds, the reptiles, the insects, as if some silent rhythm bound them together. Warning of an unseen crescendo yet to come, the woman reached out and touched the water again, drawing back a small handful and letting it slip through her fingers. It glittered like liquid sunlight, and for a moment, she paused, enchanted by its fleeting beauty. The lioness watched her, eyes narrowing slightly, noticing not the water, but the small human, so delicate and unprepared for the wild choreography unfolding around her. Somewhere in the reeds, a dragonfly hovered, wings vibrating so fast it was nearly invisible. The breeze shifted, carrying the scent of mud and fish, of wet feathers, and the faint, musky tang of wild cats. It was a smell both comforting and unsettling, a reminder that this place belonged to creatures who did not need humans to thrive. And yet, for now, the lioness chose observation over action, patience over instinct. From the distance, a sudden splash broke the rhythm. Perhaps a fish, perhaps a misstep in the mud. The young woman jumped slightly, her heart quickening. Children froze mid-step, their small hands clutching the adults beside them. The lioness's ears twitched, and she shifted her weight subtly, muscles coiling like springs. The crocodiles, now circling closer, were calm yet deliberate, eyes tracking the smallest movement on the bank. The delta had transformed from a place of morning wonder to a stage for tension that only the keenest senses could perceive. No one knew yet what would happen, but the air itself had changed, heavier now, charged with anticipation. Every creature waited, aware that the calm of the morning was fragile. A thin veneer over the raw, unyielding rules of the wild time seemed to stretch. The woman lingered over her discovery, unaware of the eyes that followed her, unaware of the unseen dangers sliding beneath the water. The children began to murmur again, slowly hesitant, as if sensing the subtle shift in the air. The lioness remained still, every sinew in her body prepared to respond in an instant. She did not move forward, but neither did she relax. She was both part of this delta and separate from it, an observer and a potential savior. The crocodiles circled, almost invisible, their heads barely breaking the surface, yet every movement deliberate, every ripple a warning the humans could not yet read. Nature held its breath. The sun climbed higher, painting the mist in streaks of gold, casting long shadows that stretched across the reeds. The river glittered, alive with the motion of water and life. And still, the tension lingered, quiet but undeniable. The delta was beautiful, peaceful, full of life, yet unforgiving. Every ripple, every rustle of reeds, every glimmer in the water was a reminder that life here was fragile and safety was never guaranteed. The lioness shifted slightly, tail flicking, her gaze never leaving the woman. The morning's wonder had given way to unease, and the river, the reeds, the mist, and the creatures within them waited. Something was coming, though no one could yet see it. In that moment, the delta held both promise and peril, a delicate balance suspended in golden light. A sense of quiet tension filled the air, soft but insistent, hinting at events that would soon unfold. The lioness, silent and watchful, embodied the wild's unpredictable rhythm. Beautiful, patient, dangerous, and protective all at once. The children laughed softly again, oblivious to the undercurrent of danger. The woman's fingers lingered in the water, sparkling like liquid gold. And for a single heartbeat, the delta seemed to pause, caught between curiosity, awe, and the first whisper of fear. The storm had not yet arrived, but its shadow was already stretching across the reeds, over the water, and into the heart of every living thing there. The first sound that tore through the morning stillness was the splash, sudden, violent, and terrifying. Water erupted around the woman's feet, sending droplets flying like tiny crystals catching the sun. She stumbled backward, gasping, the wet sand beneath her feet, shifting and threatening to swallow her small balance. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest, each beat echoing the panic that surged through her veins. All around the surface of the river erupted in a frenzy as crocodiles lunged, their dark eyes glinting with raw, ancient hunger. The air was filled with the sharp crackle of breaking reeds and the hiss of disturbed water, and for a moment, it seemed as if the world had narrowed to this small, fragile human. Stranded on a thin sandbank in the middle of the river's wild heart, a scream rose in her throat, half choked, half involuntary, as she realized the precariousness of her position. The sandbank was too narrow, and the crocodiles were circling closer.
Yes.
Sleek shadows sliding beneath the surface, teeth catching glimmers of sunlight as they sliced through the water. She froze, fear rooting her to the spot, even as instinct screamed for her to move. Her eyes darted to the edges of the river, to the murky water and reeds, searching for a path of escape that did not exist. In that heartbeat, the river became a living predator, patient, silent, and merciless, every ripple a whisper of danger. Then, from the tall grass on the riverbank, a new sound cut through the chaos, low, guttural, vibrating with power. The lioness emerged, muscles rippling under golden fur, mane bristling in the morning light, eyes locked on the intruders that had dared to corner the human. She moved with a terrifying grace, each step precise, each paw landing silently, yet with the weight of authority. A roar exploded from her throat, deep and resonant, reverberating across the river like a warning from the wilderness itself. The sound made the woman's knees wobble, made the children gasp in fear and awe from a safe distance. Even the crocodiles paused, sensing something unexpected, something they had never faced before, a predator who was both fearless and protective. Mud and water flew in every direction as the lioness leapt to the sandbank, positioning herself between the woman and the circling crocodiles. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth, musk, and the sharp tang of fear. The woman's breath came in quick, uneven gasps, her hands pressed to her chest as she tried to steady the wild beating of her heart. The crocodiles flicked their tails, creating waves that lapped hungrily at the sand, their eyes never leaving the lioness. For a moment, time slowed. The delta held its breath. Every splash, every rustle of reed, every flick of tail became a note in a symphony of danger and instinct. The lioness shifted her weight slightly, muscles coiled like springs, a silent promise that she would not yield. Her eyes, bright and unblinking, fixed on the largest crocodile that dared to advance. She growled low, a sound that rumbled through the air like distant thunder. And the crocodile hesitated, teeth snapping just above the water. Then another lunge, another roar. The battle of wills became clear. Predator versus predator, with a fragile human life hanging in the balance. The woman sank to her knees, trembling, unable to move but unable to look away, her eyes wide with disbelief and fear. Water churned violently as the crocodile circled again. Faster this time, and the lioness shifted, claws gripping the sand, tail lashing in warning. The sound was deafening, the slap of water, the hiss of jaws, the roar that shook the reeds. The woman's mind raced, each second stretching into eternity. She could see the muscles tensing beneath the lioness's fur, the way her shoulders and haunches prepared to spring. There was courage here, raw and undeniable, and yet also desperation, because even the strongest predator could not predict every move of these ancient hunters of the water. The river had become a battlefield, a collision of instincts, a test of survival, and the woman could only pray that her unlikely guardian would succeed. Suddenly, one of the crocodiles lunged closer than the rest, snapping its jaws in a blur. The lioness leapt, a golden blur of motion landing between the creature and the woman with a force that sent sand flying. Her roar cut through the air again, and the water around the attackers erupted in splashes as they recoiled. For a heartbeat, silence returned, broken only by the woman's ragged breathing. Her chest heaved as she pressed back against the wet sand, eyes locked on the lioness who crouched protectively in front of her. The predator had become a shield, a living barrier between life and death, and in that moment, the woman understood the rawness of the wild, its cruelty, its beauty, and its unexpected mercy. The crocodile circled again, slower this time, testing the strength of the lioness's defense. Each ripple of water, each glint of eye, each hiss of air made the woman's stomach tighten. She could feel the tension in every muscle of the lioness, the precision in her movements, the intensity in her gaze. The world had narrowed again to this tiny sandbank, to the lioness, to the water, and to the woman trapped between them. She dared not move, dared not blink, lest the moment of weakness tip the scales. And then, almost imperceptibly, the crocodiles began to retreat, one by one. Sensing that the cost of attack was too great, that the golden lioness with her unflinching stare was a force beyond their reckoning, the river slowly settled, returning to its quiet rhythm, though the ripples of chaos lingered on the surface. The woman sank fully onto the sandbank, shivering, water dripping from her hair, her legs trembling with relief. She dared to reach out a tentative hand toward the lioness, who watched her with a careful, almost wary eye. There was no fear in her gaze, no malice, only the quiet assurance of survival. The children, watching from the safety of the bank, whispered and pointed, marveling at the incredible courage they had witnessed. The delta, once again calm, held a deeper lesson now. Life was fragile, yet sometimes courage appeared in forms that could not be predicted, in moments that seemed impossible, and in creatures who acted with instinct and heart in equal measure. The sun rose higher, drying the mud on the sandbank, turning the water to a sparkling mirror of gold. The lioness remained for a few moments longer, muscles relaxing, tail sweeping the sand, before slipping back into the tall grass from which she had appeared. The woman remained on her knees, watching her departure, heart still hammering, mind still grappling with the intensity of what had just occurred. Around them, the river teemed with life once more. Birds returned to the reeds, fish leapt from the water, and the mist drifted lazily across the mudflats. The delta was alive, beautiful and merciless, yet in its wildness. A moment of compassion and courage had emerged, leaving a quiet truth etched into the memory of all who had witnessed it. Sometimes the fiercest predator could also be the most unlikely protector. The first sign of change came in the water. Ripples softened, splashes slowed, and the dark shapes of the crocodiles began to retreat, sliding silently beneath the surface, as though the river itself had decided the battle was lost. The lioness remained on the sandbank, her body tense, eyes never leaving the dark water until the last of the predators had vanished into the deeper channels. Only then did she lower her head slightly, the fierce fire in her gaze softening just enough to signal that the danger had passed. The woman, still trembling, sank fully onto the damp sand, chest heaving, hair plastered to her forehead with sweat and water. She could barely believe it. Alive, untouched, spared by a creature she had once feared. Every heartbeat felt loud, a drum of disbelief and gratitude that echoed across the quiet delta. For a moment, she simply stared at the lioness, unable to speak, unable to move. Her hands rested on the wet sand, fingertips tracing the grains as if grounding herself to the earth. The lioness, golden in the fading sunlight, stood like a guardian carved from nature itself, unyielding, proud, and utterly wild. Around them, the delta slowly returned to its rhythm. Birds cautiously returned to their perches in the reeds. Flocks of dragonflies skimmed over the water, and the soft murmur of fish breaking the surface whispered of life continuing as though nothing had happened. Yet the air remained thick with awe. Tension transformed into reverence for the raw courage that had saved her. The woman reached out a trembling hand, almost instinctively, as if she could touch the lioness and somehow seal the bond that had formed in the chaos. The lioness did not flinch, though she did not advance. She merely watched, her amber eyes steady and piercing, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. It was an understanding without words. Trust, instinct, and respect intertwined in a fleeting but unbreakable thread. The woman's lips parted in a whisper, a simple thank you, though she knew the lioness could not comprehend her words. Yet somehow, the moment held its own quiet communication, the language of survival, of protection, of courage. The children who had watched from the bank now crept closer, their faces wide with awe, voices hushed as they observed the lioness's dignity. A small hand reached for the woman's shoulder, grounding her as she attempted to rise. Every motion was careful, measured as though the river had taught them all a lesson in patience and fear. The delta, which only hours ago had been a stage for chaos, now shimmered in the late afternoon light. Golden mist rose from the water, drifting lazily above the reeds, carrying the scent of wet earth, fish, and the faint musk of wildcat. Nature's palette was rich and unhurried, as if the world were reminding them that life went on resilient, unforgiving, and breathtakingly beautiful. The lioness lingered a few moments longer, tail sweeping the sand, ears twitching at every faint movement in the reeds. She seemed to consider the humans, their trembling forms, the vulnerability etched into their faces, before melting back into the tall grasses with the same silent precision with which she had appeared. The delta swallowed her whole, leaving only the faint rustle of reeds and the distant cry of a heron to mark her passage. The woman let out a slow, shuddering breath, realizing the full weight of what had happened. She was alive, untouched, yet forever changed. The raw power of nature had revealed itself, and within that ferocity, a moment of guardianship and courage had emerged. Fleeting and perfect. Sunlight spilled across the river as the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in deep amber and crimson. The water mirrored the fiery hues, turning the delta into a living canvas where shadow and light danced together. Every ripple reflected the peril that had just passed, and every shimmer told a story of survival. The woman's eyes lingered on the river's surface, tracing the patterns of light and water as if trying to read the story that had unfolded, a story of danger, instinct, and unexpected salvation. The calm returned slowly, not sudden, but layered with the memory of chaos. Every sound now, the soft splash of a fish, the rustle of grass in the breeze, the distant call of a hornbill carried a sense of reverence, as if the delta itself acknowledged the life that had been spared. The woman rose slowly, brushing sand and mud from her legs, her fingers trembling as they clutched her clothing. She looked around at the children and villagers, their faces etched with awe and relief, and realized how fragile life could be in the wild. One step at a time, she moved back toward the bank. Feeling the river delta beneath her feet, feeling its power and its mercy, she glanced back once, half expecting to see the lioness. But the golden cat had vanished among the reeds, leaving only footprints and memories of courage. In that instant, she understood something profound. The wilderness was merciless, yet capable of profound acts of guardianship. Life and death existed side by side, and sometimes survival was written not only by the strength of the human, but by the bravery of another being. Guided by instinct and heart, the delta glowed as the sun lowered further. Long shadows stretching across the water and mudflats. Predators and prey alike moved with careful grace, each aware of the delicate balance that governed their lives. A crocodile surfaced briefly, then disappeared again, reminding the humans that the wild never truly sleeps. Birds wheeled above the reeds, wings catching the fading light, and a lone frog leaped into the shallow water with a soft splash, marking the quiet continuation of life. The woman knelt for a moment, letting her fingers trail along the water, feeling the pulse of the river, the heartbeat of the delta itself. The sense of awe was overwhelming. Gratitude, humility, and reverence all folded into a single quiet sensation as the camera of memory pulled back. The delta revealed itself in full, a tapestry of life interwoven with peril and beauty. Humans, predators, and prey coexisting in a fragile equilibrium. The lioness, though hidden now, remained part of that story, a reminder that courage and protection often arise in the most unexpected forms. The woman rose fully, standing tall despite her trembling limbs, a small smile touching her lips. The golden light of the sunset reflected on her face, on the water, on the reeds, and it was impossible not to feel the wonder of survival, the awe of nature's unpredictable grace. She took a final deep breath, inhaling the scents of wet earth and wild musk, and in that single quiet moment, understood a truth that the delta had whispered all along. The wilderness may be dangerous, but within it, moments of compassion, bravery, and guardianship shine brighter than fear. And so the river settled into evening, soft ripples lapping against the sand, reeds swaying gently, birds calling as they returned to their nests. The chaos of the morning and the terror of the confrontation had passed, leaving only the slow, steady rhythm of life, the golden light of survival, and the memory of a lioness whose courage had changed everything. The woman watched the river as the last of the sunlight drained into the horizon. Feeling the quiet lesson of the delta settle into her heart, life was fragile, unpredictable, and yet sometimes breathtakingly beautiful.